Welcome back to Doing Football. Jared Hall, Tyler McKillop back to help you navigate the offseason fantasy football. Lucky us, Jared. We have a presenting sponsor today.
We do.
It's Ace Hill. You know, some great content here on the YouTube channel. Especially the Skippers boys helped us get this wonderful sponsor here from Ace Hill. High quality beverages, and they've got Pilsners, Radlers, vodka sodas, you name it, they have it. So get some Ace Hill if you're in Ontario this weekend. Anyways, today we are doing, I shouldn't say we are doing, but we are listing two players that you should avoid in your drafts this season. I think both of these guys would apply in redraft and dynasty.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So I'll let Jared start. And again, two players we are avoiding in our drafts this season.
All right, my guy, it's Joe Mixon. Currently, he's got an ADP of 16.1 per sleeper, and he's going as the running back 10, which I just find to be way too high right now.
So quickly, his two best seasons in the NFL are RB9 and RB11.
Yes.
So, and being drafted the RB10 after a 6-game 2020 is surprising to see.
Very much so, yes. I think every year it's the same thing with Mixon. He gets a bunch of hype, something happens to him or something happens in that backfield, there's maybe some big news, and he just shoots up draft boards, and then he disappoints throughout the year. But yet his stats generally show him doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Like 2 years ago in 2019, he was atrocious for the first half of the year, and he still ended up being RB11, making it look like he had a good season, but he didn't really. If he was just so inconsistent, and he'd have a few big games and it would boost up his numbers. The same thing happened in 2020. Last year, he had that one big game where he had like 42 fantasy points or something like that. And that game was 42% of his fantasy points.
Like, okay, I did not look that deep into it. Okay, that's surprising.
It is absolutely ridiculous. And a lot of people, the big thing this year for his hype is going to be the exit of Giovanni Bernard.
Yeah, people are relieved to see that for sure. If you've had him previously, that's just been a burden.
The only thing is though, like Bernard does not have much of an impact on this offense. In his career with Mixon, he averages 6 touches per game, and then last season in the 6 games he played with Mixon, he only averaged 5 touches per game, 2.5 receptions, 2 carries. Like, how much of an impact does he really have on that offense? And that's such a small number. The next guy up is easily going to take that. Like Samaje Perine, like he's not good at all, but he can easily get 4 or 5 touches a game.
Yeah, change
Mixon
of pace
has
really
always been like an 80% opportunity guy, and he still can't perform with those numbers.
Yeah, so like you said, 9 and 11 were his 2 biggest seasons in the NFL. In 2019, I did find a few things that I think might go against some of this. I don't think Mixon's a very exciting player. He's somebody that he's a starting running back on a mediocre NFL team. You want to have running backs that you're drafting that are starting, that have an easy path to a solid workload. So 2019, he was the number 2 running back in yards created in the NFL. He was the RB11 in the worst game script in the NFL, 32nd ranked game script in the NFL. So, I mean, it does speak to the fact that he's able to work with, poor offenses overall. And I'm sure some people are excited about the fact the game script is going to be better with a quarterback like Joe Burrow. And the offense is certainly improved with Burrow, with Chase. But the issue, I think, with this is definitely where you're seeing him pegged as the RB10.
100%.
There's guys that are like Cam Akers is around there, Austin Eckler's around there. There are guys that I think are just a little bit more exciting and have ceilings. And really, I think in this spot, like around 7 to 12, are where you're picking a guy that could win you a league.
Yeah, Mixon's
and Joe
not
Mixon's not that guy. Like he's not gonna. It'd be crazy to predict at age 25 that he's going to put together his best fantasy season of his career.
Yeah, and like I think 2018 was the big year he had. Like 2019, sure he had some decent metrics, but it overall wasn't that great of a year. 2018 is what everyone's going back to, and like just because that was the year where he did have 4 games without Bernard, and he ended up having an incredible year. And in those 4 games, he averaged 17.3 half PPR fantasy points per game, but in the 10 games without, it was 15.2, and you have to look deeper into the numbers to see exactly why he got that boost. And the touches were exactly the same in the 4 games with Bernard versus without him.
Right.
The only difference came in the touchdowns. And it's not like Bernard was taking touchdowns from him. Bernard had no touchdowns in games he played with Mixon. It was only games he played without him. And So it just happened to be that the games Bernard was out, Mixon scored more touchdowns.
Yeah, you're pulling your hair out. Like you said, 42 points in one game. You're pulling your hair out the rest of the season at the fact that you can't even get half of that, for a couple weeks during that season.
Exactly.
Right?
And Cincinnati's just such a bad defense. They're going to be having to throw the ball all the time.
Yeah. Better quarterback play. They're going to throw the ball more too from those previous seasons, right?
Exactly.
All right, so I'll get into my do not draft player for this season. I think it's someone that a lot of people are probably picking on this offseason with how 2020 went. But it is JuJu Smith-Schuster of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So last season, the Steelers had over 42 passing attempts per game, 42.3 passing attempts per game. The second-ranked team in passing attempts per game was around 39. So over 3 more passing attempts per game than the second-ranked team in the NFL. Significant margin. League average was 35.6. In that kind of passing volume, JuJu Smith-Schuster was the wide receiver 22. The most passing attempts in the entire league still only resulted in him being the wide receiver 22. Team was 24th in yards per passing attempt at 6.2. This one I love. It is really a huge indication of what to expect from JuJu Smith-Schuster. It is his yards per route run of 1.32.
So
JuJu
bad.
Smith-Schuster just living at the line of scrimmage. And then he averaged 0.36 deep targets per game. So 800 so yards JuJu Smith-Schuster had in 2020. And you did not see, you're not going to expect to see from JuJu balls that are thrown down the field. With Najee Harris being drafted by the Steelers, they're going to make some sort of a commitment to the run. With the draft capital spent on Najee Harris, they're going to try to run the ball more this season. I would say that I would project at least 3-4 less pass attempts per game now with more of a focus on running the ball and the age of Ben Roethlisberger. The arm's not there. He can't push. We're not going to see deep targets for JuJu or really any wide receiver in this offense. His burst off the line of scrimmage is also well below average. I think we knew that coming into the NFL out of college. So teams know he can be, had in man coverage. He's really, really been poor against man coverage in his career. 19 red zone targets, 4th in the NFL. Again, Najee Harris, I think, was brought in to be able to be more efficient on the goal line, more efficient in the red zone, because they threw the ball so much in the red zone and threw the ball so much just in general last season.
And JuJu was so reliant on those touchdown numbers. Like that was the only reason he had any sort of fantasy relevance last year.
9.3% touchdown rate. That's a really high
very
number.
high.
9 touchdowns I'm pretty sure was near the top 10 in the NFL in terms of touchdowns for receivers.
You've also got to expect Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson to take a step up, especially Claypool. I think he will probably emerge as the alpha there, and JuJu's going to take a step back. With, as you mentioned, Najee Harris, he's going to take some goal line work. They're going to run the ball more on the goal line as well. It's just going to be harder for JuJu to succeed this year.
Exactly. I think it's just even Najee can expect to see some passing work, but I think overall the passing attempts are going to go down. That's going to limit the amount of targets, and then the type of routes and the type of routes that JuJu Smith-Schuster runs is going to result in less yardage, less, and likely with Najee Harris less touchdowns, because his 19 red zone targets, like I said, 4th in the NFL, really high volume of red zone targets, and it was because how inefficient they were in the run game. I mean, that's our 2 do not draft wide receivers. 1 wide receiver, 1 running back, Joe Mixon and JuJu Smith-Schuster. Make sure you're avoiding them in your drafts in both Dynasty and Redraft this season. And thank you for tuning in.